This is a Dreamcast disc and is for use only on a Dreamcast unit. Playing this disc on a hi-fi or other audio equipment can cause serious damage to its speakers.
Dreamcast, up to 6 billion players.
Welcome back to the stage of history.
Why don't we play together?
Hey, it's time to make some crazy money. Are you ready? Here we go!
Please stop this disc now.
Hello, you lovely people, and thank you for tuning in once again to the Dreamcast Junkyard DreamPod. This is episode... Mike, what episode is it?
I don't know, Tom. I knew you were going to ask me that.
I think it's 57.
58?
It's one of them. It's either 58 or 57. But yeah, welcome and thank you for joining us on this very cold March evening. My name is Tom, and I'm joined, as you just heard, by my co-host, Mike. How the devil are you, Mike?
I'm not too bad, Tom. How are you?
Yeah, I'm all right. I'm in the middle of moving, as are you, I believe.
We are, yes. We are the travelling Dreamcast Junkyard this week.
Yeah. I've got most of my Dreamcast collection is in boxes in a spare room in the new house. So, I'm sat here in a slightly echoey old house, surrounded by literally nothing. So, apologies if you can hear me echoing around this room, but it's just me in here at the moment, which is quite depressing. But what about you, Mike? How's your move gone?
It's all right. I've managed to get all my Dreamcast stuff into the room. It's a very small room, and it's a bit squashed. But that's probably my fault for having too much stuff.
Yes, I have seen your Dreamcast collection firsthand, and it is incredible.
Yeah.
Do you own every game yet?
I've got about 30 to go. I only have a big collection to piss off Ross. It's the only reason I have a collection for.
I don't know if you've seen, do you know Sega Nerds?
I do.
Obviously. Chris, the guy who runs Sega Nerds, he's on this quest at the moment to get every American game. So have you got any tips for Chris on,
the collecting is part of the fun. Take your time, be patient.
Yeah.
That's what I think.
Get multiple copies of Spirit of Speed.
Well, of course, I've got at least 12 just to give out to random people on the street.
Right, let's begin as we always do. Let's talk a little bit about what we've picked up and played in the gulf of time since our last DreamPod, which is a couple of weeks ago now. I'm going to let you go first, Mike. What have you picked up and played on the Dreamcast or otherwise?
I have a feeling this might be quite a short segment this time because I think both of us have had other things going on. I have, in terms of Dreamcast, I am on my still collecting the games. So this week I've picked up 3 more games off the list. I've picked up Missing Parts Volume 2, which is a sort of a murder mystery visual novel. I've already played Volume 1, and I have sneakily played Volume 2 using a copy from the internet. But I've got the actual version itself. It cost me like £10, I think it cost me. Operation Sanctuary, which is another visual novel. And I also picked up a trial edition of Gundam Battle Online. One of the guys I buy games off of, Alan McCluskey, who is a fantastic seller. He had this fantastic little trial edition. I'm sort of getting into the trial editions and demo discs and buying little bits because I'm nearly at the end of the collection now. So
is the trial edition quite uncommon then, is it? Or
from what I gather, it's a demo. Yeah. From what I can tell, there's a few. Japanese had a lot of trial editions come out. One of the best guys to talk about this ever is Dreamcast Collector. A fantastic, very knowledgeable guy, and he has tons and tons of them. But I've got about 5 now. I haven't actually played any of them because I'm still trying to go through games to play, which very neatly segues on to my next bit, which is what I've been playing. On the Dreamcast, I've been trying to fit my stuff into the room.
That popular puzzle game.
It's a popular puzzle game. Better than some puzzle games on the Dreamcast, actually. I've not really been playing a huge amount on Dreamcast. I played a little bit of Le Mans because what other game would you play if you wanted to stress out, de-stress after a move? On Dreamcast, only really that. But on the modern platforms, I have been playing a bit of Gravel.
Oh yeah, what is that like? I mean, I've heard mixed things about this.
Gravel is
it's a rally game, isn't it?
It's from Milestone. which is the same guys who made Ride 2, which I know you were talking about a few weeks ago on the podcast.
Oh, yeah, it's a good game.
They also made the WRC series. I think they stopped doing the WRC series now.
Yeah,
and I think they also do SBK as well.
Yes.
And it's as the name suggests, it is a slightly cheap version of Dirt. But actually...
I never even considered that. I never even put the two together.
No, exactly. Well, I presume that's what they've picked the title Gravel for. I'm waiting for the next release Snow and the next release Desert. But, it's actually quite good fun. It uses the Unreal 4 engine, so the graphics are really quite cool.
Yeah.
But it has that sort of slightly budget publisher feel to it. But it plays a lot like what I imagine a sort of a rally game on a Sega console would play like now.
Yeah.
It plays a lot like Sega Rally Revo, I believe that's the American title, but the game that came out in 2009.
Oh, the one on the 360 and the PS3.
Yeah. Which is a fantastic game. Although, funnily enough, the PSP version was better, but that's another subject matter.
I agree with you on that, to be honest. I love the PSP version. It's brilliant.
I think we've spoken about the PSP version on here before, and our collective love of rally games gets into the podcast quite a lot. But it's a good game. It's a decent game. I'm actually quite pleased with it. It's good fun. It's difficult. I'm struggling on medium difficulty level, which is not my usual level on rally games.
It reminded me of a game that I played on I think it was on the original Xbox a while back, called, is it Shocks or something? Or there was another one called Race of Champions or something. I've played that many rally games in my time, as I'm sure you have.
Yeah, I think wasn't Shocks the sort of SSX type EA rally game where they sort of tried to make a... Yeah, I don't remember much about the Xbox rally games apart from Rally Sport Challenge 2 because it was so amazing.
I think it was called Rally Masters.
Rally Masters, yeah. But there's I tend up playing lots of rally games because it's just good fun. I also picked up Burnout Paradise, the remaster on Xbox One, which does look good, but because I haven't got a 4K TV, I think I've possibly lost a little bit in the reason to have it, since I have the original already and it's backwards compatible. I'm not entirely sure what I bought it for, but it's good fun. And apart from that, I haven't even got my Switch out of the box yet, so it's sort of sitting on the floor waiting for me to play Bayonetta again. Yeah,
interesting. Cool, yeah, good selection there, mate. Very rally heavy. Interestingly, also rally heavy on my part as well. On the Dreamcast, I've mainly been playing 3 different games. I played quite a lot of V-Rally 2, because I recently wrote a kind of retrospective on it on the main blog. I've also been playing Techromancer. That's another one, which I do quite like. It's not the best fighting game on the Dreamcast by a long way, but it's quite interesting. You know, the characters and the amount of replay value in the story, how big the career mode, main sort of campaign is huge, and it gives me these really. It really reminds me of a manga version or an anime version of Pacific Rim, with all the different pilots and stuff. It's really cool, or the neon lights and stuff. It's a really colourful, enjoyable sort of Saturday morning cartoon TV type of game. I find totally. Pickup wise, I've only picked up one game recently, and when you find out what it is, you'll probably understand why. It's Illbleed, the American version of Illbleed. Yeah, and I played it before, but as you said earlier, not an official version. But this one popped up really cheap on an online store that I frequent every now and then. And I thought, gonna have that, because even though I've got a CDR version, I want the proper box copy. And it's quite a strange game, Illbleed. Are you familiar? I am. I've got the Japanese, Taiwanese, and American versions. Taiwanese, wow. Taiwanese, I'm fully worldwide, Tom. I love Illbleed. Yeah, I love Illbleed. Illbleed is. Illbleed's one of the few games I can get my girlfriend. I said girlfriend. That's going to get me in trouble. My wife. One of the few games I get my wife to play. Yeah. I haven't got a girlfriend as well as a wife, by the way, in case anyone's wondering that I'm saying that. God's sake, that intro. So, one of the few games we can sort of play on Halloween. We always end up watching some kind of anthology film, and we always end up playing Illbleed because it's just a really fun B-movie game. Weird game. I think I mentioned this on the podcast before, but I read an article, and I can't for the life of me now remember what the website was, but it was basically like a retrospective on Blue Stinger, which was the first game in the sort of the series, and then Illbleed, and the way that this guy who'd written the article went back to speak to the director of the game, but had found out that he'd since died. It had a really kind of like poignant ending to it, to the article. I'll try and find it and put a link maybe in the description to the podcast. But it's well worth reading if you're interested in like Illbleed or Blue Stinger and the weirdness that those games contain.
It is a weird. They are weird games, aren't they? It's just even the way they play. It just feels like it's. I don't know. They're odd games, but really enjoyable.
They're a kind of oddness that you don't really get these days, aren't they?
No, yeah, they're of their time, aren't they?
Definitely. On current gen consoles, I've been playing on my Switch. You've already mentioned it, but I did take the plunge and buy Bayonetta, Bayonetta 2, and got the little download code. Got to be honest, I put Bayonetta 2 in first, tried to play it. I had no idea what I was doing, so then I went back and started Bayonetta 1. Got a bit clued up on the story and how to actually play the game, and I'm still stuck on the second stage. You know, where you're on that top of that plane, it just flies into a building. You've got to do 3 special attacks. Can't do it, mate. I'm crap. Cannot do it. I must have tried it now about 20 times. The other day, I wanted to launch my Switch at the wall. I was like, this is not the kind of game to put on a portable system when you've got a short temper.
That's another weird game, actually. In fact, it's probably the closest I can think of a game like Illbleed in the modern gen. It's like it's a weird sort of nothing really seems to fit in your mind when you play it. It's a very weird game, but it looks amazing.
Yeah, the dialogue is really strange as well, isn't it? And the cutscenes and like what is happening? What is happening in this game? I've no idea. Who are these characters? You're not really introduced to them, who they are, and what. No. Do you know what I mean? So it's just really bizarre.
It's like House of the Dead Overkill when they did that on the Wii, and they did all the dialogue, and it was sort of like they tried to do adult dialogue, so it sounded like Quentin Tarantino, but with the same voice actors who did House of the Dead 2 on the Dreamcast, and so it was like really poor acting, but sort of I know the action in Bayonetta is better, but it's like it doesn't match.
It's janky, isn't it?
Yeah, it's weird.
So apart from Bayonetta on the current gen systems, I've mainly been playing the usual Pro Evolution Soccer, Dirt 4. I did pick up, I did download Bloodborne because it was part of the PS Plus offering this month, and I've tried, mate. I just can't get into it. I just can't stand the difficulty level and the constant dying and getting sent back to the checkpoint and losing all your blood echoes and just getting caught in like cheap attacks by enemies when you're mid animation. It's just. It looks amazing. The aesthetic is unbelievable. It's right up my alley. I love that kind of gothic. The city of Yharnam looks amazing. I'd love to just go there. Do you know what I mean? Obviously, there's like rabid wolves and stuff walking about, but just to look at it looks unbelievable.
It's like Manchester on a weekend, isn't it?
Do you know what? There are certain parts of Manchester that do look like Yharnam. And there are parts. There's one building called the John Rylands Library. And there's another, the University of Manchester, the old building is very kind of Gothic in architecture style, and it would fit right into Yharnam. Even the town hall in Manchester looks like it would come straight out of Yharnam. Maybe that's why it appeals to me so much. I don't know. It reminds me of home. But that's pretty much what I've been playing on the current gen Switch and PS4 mainly. I also picked up an interesting piece of hardware for the Dreamcast, something that I kind of mentioned in passing in one of my articles from ages ago. Remember when the Dreamcon first came out, the wireless controller for the Dreamcast?
Yeah.
Made by our good friend Chris over in Greece. When I was first made aware of that peripheral, I did a little bit of research into wireless controllers for the Dreamcast, because I thought, I'm sure I've heard of other wireless controllers for the Dreamcast before the Dreamcon came out, and lo and behold, there was this infrared controller released by a company called DOCS, DOCS, and when I was trying to find images of them online to put into the article, I found it quite difficult to get any good high quality images because there just weren't any. There were a few forum posts about these controllers and a few blurry pictures on Google Image Search. But as far as high quality pictures and data about these controllers went, it was pretty scant. So I was on eBay a couple of weeks ago and I just happened to notice that in the collectibles section, somebody had listed 4 docks controllers with a base unit, and so I was like, interesting. He wanted £80 for them, buy it now, but I sent him an email and said, would you accept 60? And he was like, you do realise that these don't work properly, and you probably won't actually get any enjoyment out of them. I was like, well, I run a website called the Dreamcast Junkyard, and I'd like to review them just for posterity. And he was like, oh yeah, of course, I know the Dreamcast Junkyard. I'll let you have them for the asking price that you asked.
He doesn't sound like a natural seller, does he?
He didn't drive a high bargain, but I was quite thankful to him for for that price. And the weird thing is that even though there's 4 controllers, there's only 1 base unit, and each base unit can only take 2 inputs. So I've got 2 that I don't need. So if anyone's got a base unit knocking about and they want 2 extra controllers, let me know.
There we go.
But yeah, these things are quite, again, a product of their time. They are based on infrared technology, so you have to have a line of sight between the base unit and the actual transceiver on top of the controller. Yeah. Once you've got a connection, they do work quite well. Not as good as the Dreamcon, and I'd be quite interested to see how the new Retrobit ones kind of measure up as well.
Of course, yeah.
But for the time, I think they were released around 99, 2000. I can't find any specific dates that they were released on, because the company that made them, docks, is a subsidiary of a company called Arista, which do still exist. But if you go on the Arista website, there's no mention of docks, the brand, or anything. They just do Ethernet cables now and HDMI cables. So it's quite hard to find any concrete information or evidence of when they were actually released. But I'm guessing around 99, 2000, just because that's when the Dreamcast was around. But yeah, like I say, if you break the line of sight, then the input stops, and then you have to wait for it to reconnect again. So if you're in the middle of a game and you move away, then your input just breaks down.
There is a whole generation of people listening to this who have no idea that is what wireless used to mean.
Yeah, infrared. Yeah.
I remember having wireless. I had wireless controllers for my mass system.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
And they were awful.
Yeah.
They never worked properly. And I had wireless headphones at one point as well. And if you just look the wrong way, it stops working. Very odd.
It's fascinating.
Looking back,
I know that as you say, the Master System had infrared controllers. I'm pretty sure the SNES and the NES and the Mega Drive definitely did. I know that the Saturn also had them, and those ones are actually quite rare, aren't they? The Saturn ones.
Yes.
I remember that somebody had some at a gaming event a while back. I think it was one of the Retro Collect markets, probably one of the first or second ones, and somebody that I knew had bought a complete set from another seller for, we're talking hundreds.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Not that I'd pay that, but if you're a collector and you want it, then fair enough. But yeah, exactly. Infrared technology, it works okay. Interestingly, you have to put the VMU into the base unit that's connected to the Dreamcast, so they don't go into the actual controllers themselves. And the controllers also look like a weird mixture between the Pippin AtMark controller and the weird boomerang for the PS3.
Yeah.
Really bendy sort of silver thing. So yeah, they're quite comfortable to hold. But I wouldn't recommend buying some to use, because
I just like the fact you managed to mention the Pippin in the Dreamcast Junkyard podcast. That's great. we're going for the serious collectors this time.
Yeah, Pippin AtMark, Pippin AtWorld. What was that other one? That's that really obscure console. What's it called? Crap. It's like Korean or Taiwanese or something.
What, the Bandai one?
No, not the Palladium.
Not Palladium.
It's going to do me head in now, that. It's based on a SNES.
Oh, I think I do know.
I'm going to have to look at this now.
Someone. Yeah.
I'm going to have to look for this now. Sorry. But yeah, it's a really obscure console that was only released in Korea or something. Let me just give me a sec. Talk amongst yourselves. I'm just going to Google it. Google console from Korea.
This is quality listening.
Entertain yourselves, listeners.
I'm gonna recite my entire guide from A to Z for all the listeners out there. Everyone ready? Okay. So we're gonna start with 4-Wheel Thunder, North American version. 4-Wheel Thunder, PAL. I'm already hoping Tom gets back quite quickly. Four-wheel thunder.
I'm looking. Where is it? He's not here.
4x4 Evolution North American version.
Super A-Can.
That's the one. Super A-Can.
A-Can. So you knew it was worth waiting for.
Oh, yeah. I think I actually remember going to an event where someone bought one of them. I think that was the one there was a retro rewind in Sheffield several years ago, and I think I remember someone buying it, and as I was buying lots of Neo Geo Pocket Color games, I had no idea what it was then. I don't really know what it is now, to be honest with you. I'm getting it confused in my head with the video-based one.
I think there's only about 16 games for it. So and they're really, really uncommon. Right, so yeah. Anyway, we'll go back on track to wireless controllers. And speaking of wireless controllers, check that out for a segue. Wireless PS4 adapter for the Dreamcast coming from Brooke Accessory. Mike, I've spoken for far too long now, uninterrupted.
Yeah.
What do you think about this? Are you interested or intrigued?
Yeah, at the end of the day, it's my favourite ever console, having a new adapter for a controller which I find to be the work of Satan. My hatred of Sony controllers is legendary. I cannot do Dual Shocks. I do play Dual Shocks all the time. I've got a PS4 and an Xbox One, but I cannot stand the controller.
Do you prefer the Xbox One setup then, with the controller, the analog sticks cut slightly offset?
Yeah, I think I played MSR on the Dreamcast, and ever since that moment, I can't play any games, especially as I play mostly racing games. Yeah. I can't play games without having them offset. It just doesn't feel right to me.
Because on the Xbox, the analog stick on the left is kind of up, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah, it seems more natural. It's
sort of like, it's as an old PC player, it's sort of where your hands would be with the keyboard and mouse type thing. I think that's how I sort of, in my head, have gone for it.
Sort of opposite, like mouse kind of up here and keyboard down here,
opposite, yeah.
That makes sense. But yeah, for those people who don't know what we're talking about, basically this company called Brooke Accessory, who make a range of different accessories for different consoles, have recently announced this box, like a dongle, that plugs into your Dreamcast controller port, and then you can pair a PS2 controller to it by plugging it in with a USB cable. And then once it's paired with the adapter, you can then unplug it and use it wirelessly. Obviously, there's no place for a VME to go, so you're going to still need to put a controller into port B to access your game saves. But I think it's quite cool that companies are reverse engineering stuff like this for the Dreamcast. Obviously, there's things like the Total Control, which exist. You can plug a PlayStation controller in if you want. You can plug a Saturn controller in if you want. There's also actual controllers for the Dreamcast that just look like PlayStation controllers. They don't have twin sticks, but if you want to play, if you have a burning desire to play on your Dreamcast with a PlayStation controller, then you can. Just get one of those. It's pretty cool to, as I say, have new technology still being released for the Dreamcast. There's obviously a market for it, otherwise these companies wouldn't do it.
I think at the current time, I think every single month we get more stuff released for Dreamcast. It's quite it's a bit overwhelming, I think, for some people, because there's so much coming out and so much hardware and accessories, and it's great for those of us who love Dreamcast, but I don't understand how the market's that strong, but hey, it must be.
I think what it is, and this is just me being a cynic, is that, and I've mentioned this many times before in the past, so please forgive me, but if you put anything to do with the Dreamcast in your product, then suddenly the big game websites, they will run a story on it, like Polygon or Kotaku or all these other big websites, and it's like little sites like ours that just constantly churn out content. It's like we kind of get ignored when we put up against those big boys, if you will. But as soon as they put anything on there about the Dreamcast, it's like boom, it's like top of the readership list, So I think certain companies, again, apologies for sounding cynical, may add Dreamcast functionality or bring out a new Dreamcast product because it gets views. Do you know what I mean?
But the real reason is, Tom, the fact that secretly Sega have got a Dreamcast 2 planned, and all this stuff is just trying to test the market just to see where it's going. Guarantee you, Dreamcast 2 coming soon. Josh, not Josh. Ross told me that.
Will there be a petition that I can sign?
I think Ross is going to start. Me and Ross and John are going to start one.
All right, cool.
Just to get a Dreamcast. Yeah, we're going to start one. Apparently, you can do that, and that's how you get consoles come out. So we're going to do that.
Excellent. I'm already down for that. Sign me up. Speaking of new things,
yes.
Again, what a segue. New games from JoshProd this time.
More new games.
More new games. This is the third batch, I believe, of new releases, and it is probably the most impressive lineup I've seen so far. Mike, do you have a list there? Do you want to go through the list and tell our listeners what the games are?
So I haven't got a list, but I've memorised them. I hope I get this right now.
That's dedication.
So we've got Battle Crust, I believe, which is a shmup.
I can't help but laugh when I hear that name.
It's an odd name.
Crust.
It is an odd name. It does sound a little bit odd. Yeah. It doesn't sound quite. It sounds unappealing, but it looks quite nice.
When I was a kid, a crust, right, was like when me dad or my mum used to make like a stew and put like pastry on top and then bake it in the oven.
Yeah.
The crust was what was on top. It wasn't like a full pie case. It was just like a top of pastry that you could like break off and dip into the stew. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Every time I hear that name, Battle Crust, I just think of that.
For our non-northern listeners, I think that's more of a Lancashire and Yorkshire thing,
like a hot pot type thing. Yeah,
yeah, I know what it is. But crust for me is just on the edge of bread.
Oh yeah, good point.
Cool,
or on the top of the water when you've had a bath.
Yeah. That's disgusting. That's put me off, and that game now is going to be inevitably linked with that in my head, which is lovely. So we've got the slightly unfortunately named Battle Crust. We've got Okinawa Rush, I believe.
Yeah.
Which is a scrolling RPG type beat 'em up. We have oh dear, I've forgotten already the third one. Which is not
come on.
Give me a hint.
Flashback sequel.
Oh yeah, we've got Fate Black.
Mm-hmm.
Which is quite an early 3D game, the sequel to Flashback in Another World, which came out on PC and I think PlayStation, didn't it? Back in mid-90s. One of the first games I ever played on the PC, which is really good. And the fourth game is called The Escapee.
Yes.
Which is we'll go into more detail, I'm sure, but The Escapee is a flashback style game, let's say.
There's quite a theme running through these releases, isn't there, with the flashback style gameplay and obviously the sequel to Flashback, Fade to Black. I am assured by Philippe, who runs JoshProd, that there are other games as well that have not been announced yet.
Okay.
But
what for the next release slot?
I'm not sure if it's for the next batch, but certainly after that. So
he wants my money. He wants my money, doesn't he? God.
Yeah, that's it. I'm sorry, Mike. You're going to get bankrupt. And also, the guide needs to be updated almost constantly now.
Don't. It's just every time I finish a page, I've got to put another game in the middle of it. I've got to change everything round. I hate designing stuff at the best of times.
But yeah, these new releases look quite interesting. Battle Crust is probably the least interesting from my point of view. But Okinawa Rush looks quite interesting, and I know that a couple of people who've played it have raved over it. It got really good reviews as well when it came out on Steam.
Yes.
And for those people again who don't know what it is, it's like a 2D, really kind of like frenetic beat 'em up. And yeah, Fade to Black is obviously the sequel to Flashback 3D. As Mike said earlier, very early 3D game. But I'm quite intrigued to see how it runs on the Dreamcast, because I'm pretty sure there'll be a conversion or a port of the PC version as opposed to the PlayStation version. Yeah. So that'll be quite cool. And yeah, The Escapee, which we've talked about very briefly on a previous episode, it might have been the last episode actually, is a 2D side-on kind of flashback-esque adventure game, which was released on the Amiga some years ago, but way past the Amiga's kind of heyday, so very few people have played it. And that is also from the same publisher as 4x4 Jam, Invictus Games.
That's right.
So we've had the pleasure of playing The Escapee. I think, have you finished it?
I haven't finished it, no.
But you've played it for quite some time, haven't you?
I've played it for a long time. Yeah.
And Yeah, so have I. I mean, I think it's great. I mean, I don't think it's as good as Flashback, but it's in the same vein. And
it's not as well balanced, I think, as Flashback, but it's one of the most stylish games. One of the most sort of, this is Blade Runner for the Dreamcast type thing. It's just a wonderful design. I think the game's good fun and it's an enjoyable game to play, but the design it blew me away. The design.
That intro sequence, man, it's awesome, isn't it?
I don't know if we could mention the intro sequence, but the intro sequence is it's worth buying the game just for the intro sequence.
See, people are going to think, oh, it's just an intro sequence, but no, it's made of it's like hand-drawn graphics and graphics from the game, like all kind of merged together to make this like really cinematic experience. It's just, I couldn't believe it when I first saw it. I was just like, wow, this is brilliant,
It's a really, really impressive game. In fact, all 4 games, even Battlecrust, they all look quite impressive to me. I know Battlecrust will put some people off because, it's another shmup. Because, we've had loads of shmups in the last 2 years on Dreamcast, haven't we? I think it's the first one, isn't it, for 2 years? I'm pretty sure.
Is it the first one since Ghostblade?
I think so, yeah. So, it's not as if we're overwhelmed by shmups at the current time.
The thing about Battlecrust is that it looks very kind of, obviously the aesthetic is meant to be retro style. It gives me a very much, it's very reminiscent of like PC Engine shmups. Yeah. Not very like flashy graphically, no like kind of like specular effects or transparencies, very kind of basic visuals, but actually looks quite fun as well. So,
I think that's I sort of have an issue sometimes when people moan about Dreamcast games, new indie games not looking great. I think sometimes if you stick to what works and don't try and push things too much, actually the game itself can be far more enjoyable. So,
Well, this goes back to the old mantra, doesn't it? Graphics do not make the game.
No. Although I'll go saying all that, of course, my favourite indie game on Dreamcast is 4x4 Jam, which is good looking as well. So
yeah, cool.
I'm basically saying that whatever I've just said then makes no sense, but there's more indie games. Let's all look forward. And Okinawa Rush does look fantastic. It looks stunning. If that's what it's going to be like for the Dreamcast version, because I presume the video we've seen is the Steam version.
Yes, I don't think there's any actual footage of the Dreamcast version yet online. But
that's 4 more to add to the list of games already coming out, because we've already got things like Xenocrisis and which looks amazing. I've been following them on Twitter. They look really, really good. We've still got Xenocider coming out. We've still got several games coming out. I think I've
Slave still coming out as well.
Slave coming out at some point. We've got Elysian Shadows at some point coming out, hopefully. There's lots of games, but I think with JoshProd is that whereas in the past we've always sort of been waiting for the odd game to be announced and stuff, with JoshProd we seem to be every 4 months or so, we seem to be getting another list of games which are really impressive.
Yes, brilliant. On the topic of Xenocrisis, I am going to be seeing the developers in the next couple of weeks, so that they can take take delivery, if you will, of my twin stick, so they can incorporate twin stick controls into the Dreamcast version.
Excellent.
So yeah, I'll be going to see them at their studio soon, and hopefully take some footage or get some words of wisdom from the developers, and maybe put an article up on the Dreamcast Junkyard about the Dreamcast version. So is that something?
I think interesting as well is sort of a bit slightly off topic here, but I've noticed JoshProd are releasing some SNES and Mega Drive games as well quite soon, and one of the games they're releasing is Chaos Engine 2 on the Mega Drive.
Okay.
I think it's on the Mega Drive anyway. Chaos Engine is one of my favourite all-time games, and Xenocrisis just is completely reminded me of Chaos Engine.
Right.
That top-down multi-direction shooter it's going to be amazing.
So looking forward to it then, yeah.
I am looking forward to. I look forward to everything, Tom. They could release bloody Pong on the Dreamcast. I look forward to it.
Okay, speaking of Dreamcast games that are new-ish, not really. Don't know where I was going with that, but some breaking news. Some breaking news for the Dreamcast scene. Shuouma. How do you pronounce his name? Shuouma.
I think Shuouma, yeah.
Shuouma. The guy who has been bringing all of the old Dreamcast games back online has worked his magic again, this time on DC Doom. So hopefully we'll be, in the next few weeks, we will be playing Doom on Dreamcast, but multiplayer online not only against other people on a Dreamcast, but also on people who are playing on a PC. I was only made aware of this today thanks to one of our moderators on the Junkyard Facebook group, and also Sega Nerds writer Louise. He sent me a message saying, "Have you seen this?" I was like, "No," but it looks really interesting. It was a thread on the Dreamcast Talk forum where Shuouma had basically very recently, like a day ago, announced that he'd been playing around with Doom on the Dreamcast and managed to get it communicating with his PC version, and that he will be releasing a CDI version of DC Doom soon that has all that functionality built in. So you never know, Mike. In a few weeks' time, we could be fragging each other.
That
was fragging.
That man is a wizard. I'm telling you.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
I played. I think it's actually might have been since the last podcast. But before I moved house, I played a game of Alien Front Online.
Oh yeah.
Over the thing, because I couldn't get whatever game we were playing that night working. I can't remember what game it was now. Toy Racer. I couldn't get Toy Racer.
Oh yes, that's when I logged on and you and didn't we go into a private game to try and get?
That's right. Yeah.
Alien Front working, and I couldn't get it working, so you see this.
That's right. I played
Cheers
Alien
for
Front
that,
Online. Fantastic game. But just the entire everything from what he's doing, what Schuma's doing, and what they've done over there is amazing. And Dreamcast Live is doing a lot. Yeah.
And speaking of Dreamcast Live, going effortlessly into the next topic, the update from Luke Benstead. They've recently updated the Dreamcast Live, the Dreamcast Now service, Dreamcast Now, to add some new functionality and make it even more effortlessly cool than it already is. So again, for those people who don't know, Dreamcast Now is the thing that you log on to when you're playing online with your DreamPod, and it just basically comes up. It's a website, just dreamcast.now.net, I think it is.
Yep.
And it just shows you who's online, who's playing what. They've added a lot of new functionality to it, so you've got things like you can now have your country flag, so it shows which country you're playing in, player ranks, last scene where you were last playing. I know that's obviously already been there, but apparently it was quite broken. A couple of missing images, so it shows the background image of your profile, shows what game you were playing last. They've added a few new ones as the library grows. Just a few kind of like quality of life updates there. And it's nice to see that Dreamcast Now is being expanded and improved. There's now 357 people, I believe, who are members of Dreamcast Now. So the Dreamcast online community continues to grow. It's obviously nowhere near the millions that play on PS Plus or Nintendo Switch or Xbox Live, but it's a very cool little community and quite friendly. Yeah. So if you've not yet invested in a DreamPod, this is probably one of the most surprising features that comes with it. You probably heard about all the online gaming that's going on around the internet at the moment, but probably not too au fait with Dreamcast Now. So if you head to dreamcastlive.net, you can find a guide there that just basically tells you all about what Dreamcast Now is, how it works, and basically when you buy a DreamPod, you automatically get given an account that like ties in with Dreamcast Now. So it's already set up for you. You don't have to sign up, you don't have to create an account or anything like that. When you buy a DreamPod, it's already set up for you. Well, if you buy one from PC Wizard, from Dreamcast Live anyway. So worth checking out.
Yes.
I'm yet to see the new dashboard because, as I said earlier, and I'm pretty sure you're the same, Mike, we are both in the middle of moving house, so I've not actually been able to get my internet set up yet in the new place, so I've not been online much. So
I haven't played on. Unfortunately, I haven't played on Dreamcast Live for a few weeks, which is it's hurting my soul. But I will try and get it on there this weekend.
They've been playing a couple of games I don't actually own as well recently. They played Maximum Pool last week.
Yep.
But I don't have a copy of that unless I burn it. But don't know. Have you played that? Any good?
No, I'm still waiting for Spirit of Speed 1937 to go online. I know it's not an online game, but I'm waiting for it.
Waiting for Shuouma to work his magic.
Yeah. I'm believing if we can start the race in next week, by the time we finish it, we'll be about 75. So that's just one lap of one track. We should do an entire podcast just about Spirit of Speed 1937, live stream.
I'm not sure how long we could keep it going for, because I just want to put my head down the toilet, after one lap.
See, the funny thing is that I actually quite enjoy playing Spirit Speed 1937. I know that's a shocking revelation, and that's caused everyone just to sort of gasp in despair. But I do enjoy the odd rubbish game, just to sort of. I think you have to play rubbish games, see how good other games are.
Good point, very good point. Also, Mike, question for you about Spirit Speed 1937. I have it in my mind, because I've not played it for that long. I've not played it in so long. Do you have to manually operate the clutch?
No.
I think you don't. Because I remember something really weird with the gearbox. And like not being able to change gear unless I did something else. And I thought, maybe there's a clutch or something.
I think that's more to do with the game being broken.
Right.
I think some cars only have one gear. It is quite poor.
It's a shame though, because it's a really fascinating period of motor racing. It's something that I should be really interested in, like those massive cars with those gigantic engines and like no brakes. Do you know what I mean?
There was a game on a PC about, I'm guessing the same sort of time, Grand Prix Legends,
right?
Which is sort of, I think they went a bit slightly more modern, sort of Sterling Moss sort of era, 1930s onwards, 1940s onwards. Sorry. And that was really, really cool, really, really difficult, and I remember it. So when I first played Spirit Speed 1937, I thought, this is going to be that game. This is going to be like really, really cool. And I'm a massive flag nerd. I am basically Sheldon Cooper for the Dreamcast. I will say that now. But I adore flags. Just saying that makes me
flags.
Flags.
What? As in like country flags or?
Yes, I'm a vexologist. I'm somewhat of a.
I did not know this about you, Mike.
Yeah, I am. I'm a massive geography nerd my entire life, but I'm a massive flag fan, and the flags in the game are the correct period flags. So when you actually drive in Libya, it's the correct flag of I presume it's Italy. I'm sure, and you have the correct Austrian flag. To me, that nearly made it acceptable.
Right. Wow. So
it's even got 48 stars on the US flag.
Wow. That's pretty good. That's pretty impressive attention to detail. I know that some of the tracks are, factually correct that don't obviously exist anymore.
No.
But yeah, I didn't know there was that level of detail.
I think it's a fascinating historical piece. I think there's only two games really I can think of on Dreamcast which are sort of really fascinating historically. There's that, and there's a game called I'm going to get this completely wrong, but the historical Troy Adventure game on a Japanese version, which is I think it's based on a show in Japan where they sort of, from what I gather, they sort of go back in time to the time of Troy and sort of walk around the city. And I played that game for quite a while. I had no idea what it was doing. It was in Japanise.
I've never heard of this game, but I did do classics at college, so I know quite a little bit about Troy and all that stuff. So that sounds fascinating to me. I'd be really interested to see how accurate it is.
It's not a great game. In fact, there's not a huge amount of game to it.
You're not selling it to me, Mike. You're not selling it.
I'm not selling it. It's quite cheap though. It's like £10. Historical Troy Adventure, 1186 BC. I want to say, but if I got that date right, I'd be amazed. I'm actually looking at.
Is it based on the Iliad then? Is it?
No, I think it's actually based on an historical. I've got the year right as well. It's actually based on, from what I can tell, the normal life of people living in Troy around that time. So you sort of walk around houses and you sort of walk around. It's an odd sort of game, but
I'm pretty sure it was one of those something else in like was it called Ilium or something like that? The city.
It's been a long time since I read the Iliad, and we've suddenly gone very high class. My classics, which is
lost like half the.
I'm more of a Plato fan myself. More of the Republic is one of the most important books in my life. I actually have read. Anyway, that's not the point. We've gone slightly off subject.
I'm more of an Aeschylus fan myself, but
we've
lost everybody now.
I know we have. Yeah, there are some really good. I think weirdly enough, I've said that that's the most two historically important games. And I've forgotten about Shenmue, which of course in itself is a historical trip back in time, isn't it? I suppose.
Oh yeah, to the 80s. Yeah. You also didn't mention. I thought you were going to mention Railroad Tycoon 2, which basically tracks the Industrial Revolution from the days of Brunel, you know what I mean, and his great engineering works, all the way through to the broken mess that we have today in this country that we attempt to call a railway.
It's quite a good game actually. Where we were talking,
it's not bad.
Well, yeah, it's not bad. Not as good as the PC version, but.
Anyway, let's move away from historical facts and the Industrial Revolution.
That's next episode.
Yeah, that's next episode, yeah. Let's move on very briefly, sidestep into Tony Hawk, the Birdman. This is the news that there is a new book coming out, which details all of the Tony Hawk games, including our beloved Dreamcast versions. This book is actually available as of, in about 3 days' time, because I think it's officially released today on the 26th of March, 2018, but it's not actually available yet on Amazon because it's not updated. And the book is written by a guy called Trevor Esposito, who is known as the Slate Man. Apparently he's quite well known within the Tony Hawk's fandom circle. This book is called Tony Hawk's Gaming Domination, and it's the result of about a year and a half's work on behalf of Trevor, who has basically collated all the information that you can find and that he knows on the Tony Hawk franchise. And this book is 200 plus pages documenting every single game in the franchise, beta versions, interviews with developers, differences between versions, visual comparisons. It looks amazing. And the reason I bring it up here is because there are several very detailed chapters on the Dreamcast versions, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater and Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2. And he also shared with me his thoughts on the reasons behind the cancellation, or rather the non-start of Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3 for the Dreamcast. I will be putting up an article on the Dreamcast Junkyard about this in the very near future. So keep your eyes peeled on the main blog. But I just wanted to give him a shout out because I've seen the book. I've seen it's full colour. The amount of detail it goes into is absolutely unbelievable. And for someone to put that amount of effort into such a niche topic, Tony Hawk games, is commendable. As someone who pours a ridiculous amount of time, as you do, Mike, into a very niche subject, i.e. the Dreamcast, I can totally appreciate the amount of effort and work that he's put in. And I, for one, shall be purchasing a copy. So, yeah.
Yes, yeah. I think Tony Hawk's 2 is a game, especially Tony Hawk's 2, is a game we don't mention enough on this podcast.
I don't think we ever have.
No, it's probably the most overlooked game when it comes to best Dreamcast games, whereas most of us, or I'm talking to myself, but that was probably my favourite game at the time on Dreamcast. I love Tony Hawk's 2.
Yeah, I mean, you ask any gamer if they play Tony Hawk, and they're like, yeah, of course. Even if it's only just one. I bet you, the Tony Hawk franchise is probably one of the most played games in the whole of gaming. Because you just say to someone, have you ever played Tony Hawk? And they're like, well, obviously not everybody, but the vast majority of people will have played a Tony Hawk game. Even if it's one of like the shit ones that were on like the Xbox or the 360.
Well, the weird thing as well, because obviously I used to write for a punk fanzine back in the early 2000s. And,
Mike, you're full of surprises tonight. You've told me 2 facts now. You love flags, and you used to write for a punk magazine.
Yeah. Well, for punk fanzine.
And
I used to go to hundreds of gigs a year, and a lot of the people who used to go to the punk gigs a lot of people would actually have only got into the music because of Tony Hawk's.
Yeah, I can totally see that. Yeah.
A lot of bands, there's a band called Consumed, who I mentioned on the podcast before, because they appear one of the songs on Propeller Arena.
Yes,
they were on one of Tony Hawk's games, and people would go to the gigs to see Consumed because they've played them on Tony Hawk's. They'd never been to a punk gig in their lives, which is really, really cool. It sort of gave us a re-burgeoning scene at the time. There was a lot of people going to another very niche subject. But Tony Hawk's was a massive part of that. I haven't skated for years anyway, but all that kind of subject matter made everything. I know it was very much of its time. I think now Tony Hawk's, the last one, was a bit of a disaster.
Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 5.
Yeah. But I think actually looking back, I think a Tony Hawk's game, apart from the latest generation, Tony Hawk's 2 was one of the games I really wanted, or Tony Hawk's was one of the games I really wanted on the Dreamcast. When I got a PS2, Tony Hawk's 3 was a game which swung me, and Tony Hawk's Project 8 was the first game I bought on my Xbox 360. I love Tony Hawk's games.
2 questions. The first one being, do you class Zebrahead as punk?
Yes.
Excellent.
I've seen Zebrahead many times.
Excellent. Just thought I'd ask.
Yeah.
I have a similar background with Tony Hawk to you. I mean, I didn't play it on the PlayStation because I didn't have one. But not when the game was out. I had one later. But my first exposure to Tony Hawk was on the Dreamcast. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, then Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2. And then when I got a GameCube, one of the first games, or rather, no, not one of the first games, but the first Tony Hawk game I got for that was Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3.
Yeah.
And like yourself, I've gone on and owned, probably the vast majority of Tony Hawk games.
Yep.
So I've played, a lot of them. This book is coming out soon. It should be out by the time this goes out anyway. The book is called, once again, Tony Hawk's Gaming Domination, and it's from Trevor Esposito. And he also is the founder of the very popular Tony Hawk website, Planet Tony Hawk. So, please check that out if you get the chance. And check out the Dreamcast section, because I've seen it, and it's very good and very in-depth.
Cool.
Yes, Mike. Very cool. Right, Mike, we've come to that awkward part of the podcast where I ask you if you've got anything else you would like to talk about.
Well, I was going to talk about 17th century flags of the Ottoman Empire.
I'm all ears, mate. Go for it. I'm all ears.
Yeah,
I'm sure
I knew you were going to say that as well. Damn it.
We'll save that for the next episode.
I am. I think that rounds up this week pretty nicely.
Yeah, cool. Okay then. Well, thank you very much for joining me this evening, Mike. And thank you to our listeners as well for tuning in or downloading this podcast, wherever you may be listening to it. I'd like to give a couple of shout-outs. I want to give a mention to the guy who runs our YouTube channel, James Jarvis. He's been uploading quite a lot of new content there, so go and check out the Dreamcast Junkyard on YouTube. If you type Dreamcast into the search bar on YouTube, the first thing that comes up is Dreamcast Guy. We need to get above Dreamcast Guy. He's a friend of the podcast, a friend of the friend of the show. He's going to be on a new episode in the near future. I've been speaking to him on Twitter. But yeah, we need to get the Dreamcast Junkyard above Dreamcast Guy. Right, that's your job, listener, for the next month or so, or 6 months before we get the next episode out. Check out our YouTube channel. Mike, you can be found on social media at.
I can be found at Twitter at Space Turnip. That's space_turnip.
Yeah, Mike, I need to ask, what is the turnip thing all about with your?
So when I first went online and played Jedi Knight back in 1998, I think it was 1999. I wanted a game handle, and I didn't have one at all. I went to a random name generator, which gave me the name Aquatic Raccoon. But rather than going for Aquatic Raccoon, I called myself after the name of a space dwelling alien in Star Trek Next Generation called Gumtu, who I always refer to as a space turnip.
Wow. That's quite the origin story.
The thing is, I've been saying that story for so long, I don't even remember if that's true or not. I think I just literally picked up two random words. I don't know. But yeah, that's what I think I named it after.
Fantastic. Well,
I would ask you what you named your name after, but you named yourself after yourself. So
yeah, it's Tom, and then my middle name is Lee, and then my surname begins with C, so it's Tom Lee C. So yeah, I'm on Twitter at Tom Lee C. We can be found as a collective on Twitter at the DC Junkyard, on Facebook, facebook.com/the Dreamcast Junkyard. Also groups / the Dreamcast Junkyard on Facebook. One last thing I just want to give a very small plug and mention to was the interview we did with Bernie Stolar recently, which was fantastic. I want to give a massive thanks to Jordan, who works at Zoom Platform, for putting me in touch with Bernie, and also to Bernie as well. He's probably not listening to this, probably never will, but such a nice bloke. And to be conversing with the former president of Sega America via email, like sort of in a conversational style, was just kind of surreal, really, because I can remember being stood in electronics boutique picking up my first Dreamcast.
Yep.
And then, fast forward 20 years, I'm speaking to the guy who basically came up with the idea of the Dreamcast. Do you know what I mean? It's a bit surreal, really. So thanks to Bernie and thanks to Jordan. And I think that will do it for this particular episode. Thanks very much for listening, and we will see you on the next podcast. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Here we go.
Please stop this disc now.